Hello, everybody. Welcome to the North Carolina Botanical Garden. It's great to have you all here. Great to have the folks on Zoom with us as well. I'm Joanna Massey-Lalikas. I'm the Director of Learning and Community Engagement here. And with me, supporting me today, I have Emily Weaver. So we're here. We're happy to have you all here with us. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our speaker today. Mary Jack Brennan is a retired North Carolina Cooperative Extension agent who specialized in fruit and vegetable horticulture for 10 years, and I had the great honor to work with her for a while when I was working over at NC State. Mary Jack developed the Community Garden Resource Program and the Urban Farm School while working in Forsyth County. And currently, Mary Jack consults on garden designs, farm management, and community horticulture projects through Heartplace Farm Consulting. So please join me in welcoming Mary Jack.
Thank you, Joanna. And I'll have to say, I had the pleasure and privilege of working with Joanna. That was one of the best parts of my job. I'm not a technology person, so that arrow is, I'm going to use that. Okay, thank you. I'm not a technology person. I'm not that age, of course, and I would rather be outside doing things in the dirt. But technology is so great, and it's wonderful to have people joining us through Zoom. And hopefully I can give you something to take home that you can apply in your own gardens. So before I start, let me ask, how many of you have already planted some native fruits in your garden? Okay, a good many of you. That's great. So I'll start off talking about just, well, actually, here's my outline, and then I'll start talking. I just wanted to let y'all know, and you can see a little of the technology glitch there as I switched over to another type of slide. But we're going to talk about what are native plants, just briefly. Why do we want to plant native plants and protect them? And then I'm going to go into a little bit about site selection, and then specifically about the plants. I advertised 12, but I've got 14 I'm going to try to get in, and give you a little bit of information about the cultural care, and then also some design elements. And then I had fun adding a slide about culinary uses for each of the species that I'm going to present to you today. So here's the list of what we're going to talk about. Serviceberry, chokeberry, pawpaw, persimmon, wild strawberry, southern crabapple, red mulberry, maypop, wild plum, sumac, blackberries, blueberry, elderberry, and muscadine. So when we talk about native plants, these are plants that are indigenous to a specific habitat or area, and they have evolved to grow in the conditions where they are in that specific region. Excuse me. When we talk about it being edible, these are ones that are not going to give you distress when you eat them. There are a lot of berries and fruits out there that we could eat, but we might regret it later. And so these are ones that humans can enjoy without intestinal distress. So why native plants? Well, I think probably most importantly is because they provide a key role in the ecological health of the landscape. And another thing I would love for y'all to really think about, maybe ponder, is that these native fruits actually connect us with other animals in nature because we can eat them, and it's a food source for them as well. Many of the indigenous folks that we honor who were on this land were, that was their food source. They didn't go to the grocery store. And so it actually connects us with the past. It connects us with other parts of nature. Great addition to homesteads and permaculture. A lot of people are practicing permaculture and want to have fruiting plants that they can enjoy. Also, less pest problems, tend to be less pest problems if we are planting them in the proper location and that's suited for them. And also, they provide a lot of seasonal interest and can really enhance the biodiversity of a landscape. So lots of good reasons to use native plants. Now, in terms of fruit production, we need to consider sunshine, flowers, flower production, the weather conditions, pollination, water availability, and wildlife, because all of these things are going to impact whether you actually get to harvest some of that fruit. The more sun that the plant has generally, the more flowers there will be. The more flowers that there are, the more fruit you are likely to have. Water impacts, especially between flower and fruit production. The amount of water that a plant gets impacts whether you're going to be able to harvest fruit. And of course, wildlife. You know, you've got to really keep your eye out on that native fruit because all the other wildlife is, and they're pretty stealthy. So they make, the birds especially, they know exactly when that berry is going to be ripe. But the less wildlife you have attacking the fruit, I'll say it like that, the more fruit you'll get. So let's talk a little bit about site selection. Now this is saying that you are going to be planting these native fruits. So you're not just coming upon them already existing in your landscape, you're adding them to your landscape. We need to think about sunlight, temperature, air drainage, soils, and the history of the site. And this is all what an orchardist would be thinking about, siting, you know, fruit trees. They're going to be thinking about needing 6 hours or more of sun for that fruit production to happen. I like to remind people that botanically, fruits are just seed containers. And so they need that sun. They need that sunlight. You can prune the canopy of the plant to actually open it up for more fruit production. And then if you've got an existing plant that maybe is covered with some canopy, you can prune back some of that canopy for more sun to come in. The most important thing to remember is you need about 6 hours of full sun to get good fruiting. Temperature, you need to think about the extremes, nighttime temperatures, and by extremes we mean kind of like the weather we have in March, sometimes in February, sometimes in April, but it'll be really warm during the day, and then the temperature will drop at night. And so some of those extremes can hurt can cause some problems with the plant with fluctuations. And the length of the growing season will also affect fruit production. So when was the last killing frost? When is the first killing frost? Some of those, you know, is it going to be around April 15th, which is the average? Is it going to, for the last killing frost? Is it going to be October 15th for the first killing frost, which is the average? It's never exactly on those days. And so that's also going to affect. I know when I was working in Forsyth County, we have a really nice pawpaw orchard at the office there on Fairchild Road in the middle of Winston-Salem. And the pawpaws bloom right around April 15th. And April 15th actually happens to be the date that, you know, that the Weather Service says or USDA says that's the average last killing frost for Winston-Salem. Well, our pawpaws were in full bloom, and we'll talk a little bit about some of their pollination issues in a minute, but we had a killing frost on April 15th, and it wiped out our pawpaw production that year. So, that was a little bit unusual. We usually, had the coldest weather before April 15th. So fruit trees, anyway, sorry to get off on that little tangent, but fruit trees have a chilling requirement that they must meet in order to produce successfully buds and blooms. And vernalization, it's that cold period, usually around 40 to 45 degrees is when the plant is sort of ticking off the hours for the hormones to get active for bud production to happen. If the plant's not getting that, and unfortunately with our changing climate, some of that's changing. The good thing about native plants is they have adapted to the bioregion that we're in. And it could be, though, that some of the climate change may impact budding. Air drainage, that's very important. We live in the Piedmont, we have hills, we have valleys, and so you don't want to plant at the bottom of a hill if you can avoid it, and you don't want to plant next to low buildings where the cool air is going to pool at usually first thing in, around sunrise, right before sunrise is the coldest time of the night usually. In many areas of North Carolina, there's a 1 degree Fahrenheit difference in temperature for every 10 feet that you go up in elevation. And so it's going to be warmer at the top of the hill than it's going to be at the bottom of the hill. So think about that when you're siting your plants. So with proper drainage, fruit trees and shrubs can grow in many types of soil. These native plants have adapted to live in many different kinds. Many of them are found growing in bogs. Some of them are found growing in rocky areas. And so we can sort of copy that, replicate that in our gardens. They don't do well in poorly drained soils that are going to, except for blueberries, let me say that, although they are going to produce better with a better drained soil. But those soils need to be air, there needs to be air exchange as well as water movement through the soil. And if you've got a really tight clay that you just cannot grow plants in, you can always construct a raised bed. Know for your fruiting plants that are going to get anything besides the strawberries that we're going to talk about today, you're going to need a deeper bed that's about 18 to 24 inches. And know that you are going to have to water. You're definitely going to have to water because they're going to dry out on all sides, except for that bottom. They lose water more quickly. The last thing about site selection that I want to mention is just what happened on that piece of property, that landscape, prior to you planting that native fruit. How was that land used? Is there any chance that, there's compaction from vehicular traffic that was, sometimes when new subdivisions are being built, there's one lot in the subdivision that was the place where all the equipment was parked, when the folks went home for the day. Is that where your garden is? Sometimes there's construction debris buried in the soil. And so you want to know what happened where. You also, if you're in an urban setting, you can check for soil contaminants. Now, this is a website that the Duke Environmental School, sorry, I'm blanking on the name of it, put together. And so you can go there and it'll show you where Superfund sites are, where brownfields are, where dry cleaners are or have been, all these kinds of things. So it's useful. We used to use that a lot for community gardens in our urban settings. Okay, any questions about that general information?
When you talk about pruning plants, is there a best time, like relative to the final killing frost, to do that, or is it like any time before that period?
For your fruit bearing plants, if you need to prune, the best time to do it is in dormancy. So for heavy pruning. Now if we were talking about peaches or apples or something like that for commercial production, which we're not talking about that today, there's some different times to prune those, but you want to do it during dormancy.
Okay, which lasts up until the last killing frost?
It's getting a little, you need to do it now. Yeah, you need to do it now because it's warming up. Things are really going to start budding out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I used to tell people this is an interesting thing from, how I've seen the climate change over the last 20 years. I used to say, right around the ACC tournament, you want to have your pruning done, or do it. And I really think we need to have it done, what's another event that we can link it to? Valentine's Day, maybe, have it done by then. But I just finished mine yesterday, so. Okay, about to go too fast. So this is the two different plants I'm going to talk about, Amelanchier canadensis and Amelanchier arborea. The canadensis is a shrubby plant. The arborea is a tree. They're both referred to as serviceberry, shadbush, juneberry, saskatoon, or sarvisberry. So if you were from the western part of North Carolina, you would call it sarvisberry. And it's really a lovely plant. It's a lovely plant to include in your landscape. It's actually very beautiful. It blooms, it's a harbinger of spring, blooms very early. I know Larry Mellencamp with the North Carolina, with the UNC Botanical Garden in Charlotte, loves this and thinks that this is the finest fruiting native that we have. You can see the fruit there in the picture are these nice berries. Let me talk a little bit about the cultural conditions. It will grow in part shade. Just remember, the more sun you have, the more fruit you will be likely to get. But it will grow in part shade. Can take a variety of soils. pH range is good for us. I know our North Carolina soils tend to be acid, and so this can, and if you've got a landscape that's had lime over the years, it's going to do fine there too. So you need about 12 to 24 feet around to plant this because it is going to spread. The deciduous shrub gets up to about 15 feet, so that's the canadensis, and the arborea, the tree, gets up to 40 feet. Let's talk about the culinary uses. So these fresh berries have this delicious taste. The birds love them and often get them first. So this is one you have to, and with it being a tree or a tall shrub up to 15 feet, you really have to be ready to get them. But you can see the description of their taste. Great, they can be used in smoothies and salads. Cooked pies, muffins, jams, jellies, syrups, and these were used in pemmican, the traditional Native American food, and also can be used in wine. You'll see a lot of these can be used as ingredient for wine and ice cream. So those bloom when the shad are running. That's another reason they got that name. And the berries are ripening in June, so that's another reason, Juneberry.
There's little seeds in them, like blueberries.
Yes.
And then.
Hold on one second. Mary Jack, do you mind repeating that first question?
There are little seeds in them like blueberries, yes.
And then I think the deer will go after them, right?
The deer, yes. So the thing about native fruit is they are very attractive to wildlife. They're very attractive to birds. They're very attractive to mammals. So yes. Yeah, so it's a labor of love to harvest those fruits. But I like to remind people, think about how we are connected to those animals. They can't go to the grocery store or farmer's market or grow them themselves. So, yeah.
I've noticed that some of the serviceberry bushes on campus get maybe a virus on the berry, which is covered with little
They
spikes.
do. So it is in the rose family, and it will get the cedar apple rust. It can serve as a alternate host for cedar apple rust. So that is something to think about. If you have a lot of cedar trees, you're not going to get rid of cedar apple rust. So if you've got a lot of cedar trees, you may not want to add this plant to your landscape. Thank you for asking that question.
Mary Jack, we have a couple questions on Zoom. Are you open to those?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So the first is it okay to eat service berries when they have apple rust on them? And
It will make the texture kind of maybe not too enjoyable, but to my understanding, it's not going to hurt you as a human being.
thank you. And then do the shrubs grow into trees or are they different plants?
They're different plants.
Okay.
They're
Thank
different plants. Oh, I think I skipped ahead. Okay, so this is Aronia artibudifolia, which is also red chokeberry. And this is a super, super tart berry, if you've ever had this. This is a deciduous shrub, semi-evergreen, shrub, and this will stay in a smaller range, 5 to 10 feet tall. If you've ever tasted this, it's very tart, very tart. I don't think, I wouldn't eat it just plain. I would have to have it in something, but that's me. It does like it can grow in some moist soils, so if that's an issue. It does tend to grow in colonies. It's gonna send up a lot of sucker type botanical, it's going to send up stems and grow out that way. But it is very good for fall color. I've heard, in terms of landscaping, I've heard people talk about, there'll be several shrubs that I'm going to mention this about, and this is one. This is one that, it's not going to be something you use as a specimen plant up close to a patio or, right by your front door, but put this, in the shrub border somewhere that you're going to be able to enjoy during the winter, especially because it does have beautiful red berries. The birds will eventually get them, but it also, the buds are red. And so it's very interesting. So it adds something interesting. And it will hold its leaves unless we have one of those, it's mild, 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 and then a sharp cold night. That'll knock the leaves off of it, but it'll come back. So you can eat them, but it's very seedy and they're very tart. So this is one that's going to be used more for cooking. The berry is super high in pectin, so the jelly or the jam you make is going to be it's a heavy, sort of a stiff jam. Pawpaws. So pawpaw is a tree that is native to our area. It's usually found growing along stream banks. It is also one that's going to colonize, and it's going to grow and stretch for sun. Often people will not realize they have pawpaws in their woods until they step on one of them. And then it's like, what is this? So they're little, the ones that have not been improved, I would say, are small, maybe about the size of a maypop. This one down here on the right, on y'all's right, is, I think the variety is sunflower, and that fruit gets really big. You can see that person's hand. So again, full sun for your best production of fruit, but it will also grow in part shade, and it's a really very attractive, it's an architectural type tree. The way has big leaves, sort of coarse textured. excuse me, you need a good fertile soil. Think about where they're growing in nature is along stream banks. And I'm going to need to drink some water. So sorry, I apologize. Okay. So this one, you do need to, if you're trying to grow it for the fruit, you're going to need to clear out some of the suckers that come up because it's also one that wants to grow in a colony. If you are using, they're probably 40-something cultivated varieties now, grafted. And if you're using that, you need to protect it from wind because this is a top-heavy tree that has big, long leaves that when it rains, they get heavy. And if we get wind, it's going to pop that top of the tree right off. I've seen that happen at our orchard in Forsyth. So you do need to have 3 different varieties. This plant's kind of interesting. It does have male and female flower parts on the flower, but they ripen at different times. And so you need to have 3 distinct varieties for good cross-pollination. I'm going to let y'all read that.
Hot water?
Oh, that'd be great. I'm so sorry. I think you can see the pollen in the air. So I think it's just getting to me. So how many of you has anybody tasted a pawpaw? What'd you think? Yes? No? Okay?
It's sort of like a mango, but not quite.
Right.
I'd rather have a mango.
Okay. Some people like it, some people not so much. It is a very interesting fruit. It's related to the custard apple and other tropical trees and fruits. It is the largest native fruit in North America. And you can see what it looks like when you cut it in half. It's got lots of seeds, and you have to pulp out the flesh there. Now, some people are allergic to the skin. There's a chemical in the skin that can make you break out. And I've known people to actually have really bad hives from pulping out pawpaws. So if you have any kind of allergies to poison ivy, poison oak, any of those kinds of things, reactions, wear gloves if you're going to be working with the fruit, and you should be okay. Thank you so much. So this is, lots of uses. We used to have a pawpaw festival, and so we would collect all of these different food items, and you can find it all. There's a big festival up in Ohio they have a big pawpaw festival, a lot of pawpaw beer, and so it's pretty good. Native persimmon, this is a really beautiful tree in the landscape. That bark has been called alligator bark, described as, alligator skin. The flowers are pretty. You don't really see those unless you've got some lower branches. Awesome fall color. And then, you get the fruit. Here's a picture of the fruit down here in the bottom. And of course, that's ripe fruit. And you want to wait and eat it when it's ripe because it can, it's very astringent, I'll say. It'll turn your mouth inside out if it's not ripe. But it does make a super sweet persimmon pudding. And that's sort of an old time thing to have. It's a tree that grows to close to 40 feet 40 or more feet tall. It also is a nuisance to farmers who have, maybe there's some wild persimmons and the plant will send out long roots and send up new trees. Lots of those happen, not right up next to the tree, but out, maybe 30 feet from the tree. And so this can be a nuisance for farmers who are trying to maintain fields for whatever reason. It is very difficult to transplant. You can find these in nurseries, though. And the wildlife, the deer, love persimmons. So I have a beautiful persimmon tree in my front yard that I inherited that someone had done a really wonderful job of pruning and opening it up to the sun. And it's mature, and we get a good crop of persimmon every year. We also get a good crop of deer that come and actually stand up on the tree and eat the fruit out of the tree. So it's kind of interesting to watch, but yes.
Do all persimmon trees bear fruit?
Thank you for asking that question, Joanna. No, they do not. So you have your male flowers on one plant and the female flowers on the other plant. And so you can buy grafted plants that have, they've grafted a female, but you want to make sure that's what you're getting if you want the fruit. Yes. We have a question right here, Joanna.
We have one in our yard growing with other trees. The persimmon is the notable one. It's the one I misidentified until my wife handed me a persimmon. I was spending all my time identifying trees, but not persimmons. It seems to either losing its ability to fruit or like aging out of it or something like that. Does that happen? Seems to be fruiting less than it has in earlier years. We've had 35 years to look at it.
Well, I have not heard of that being an issue, but fruit trees typically do have a lifespan of fruiting.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder sometimes if we have a dry spell between flowering and fruit being produced, especially right around flowering, that can cause a reduction in fruit. If we have too much rain at flowering, pollination doesn't occur, and so your fruit production is down. So you might look to see if there's been disturbance around the tree itself.
Well, some of it's just competing with other
Yeah,
trees.
yeah. It could be lack of sun.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it could be lack of sun.
Okay, we like the trees that are with it too. That's the problem. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, another question about the persimmon.
So I heard that with persimmons, usually you can tell it's ripe once the fruit has fallen. And I was just wondering, with so much competition for native fruits, how do you end up actually collecting any at that point? If there's any tips.
Well, there are several things you can do. I have seen, I don't do this, but I have seen people put sheets down or tarps down, and so when fruit drop happens, it happens pretty much, most of it will come down, or enough of it will come down that it gives you enough to make some of the, a pudding, or to freeze the pulp or something like that. Even with the deer pressure where I live, we still get plenty of fruit. So did I answer your question? Okay. So wild strawberry is Fragaria virginiana. This is what it looks like. I know a lot of you probably have the little yellow flowering strawberry, which I call snake strawberry. That's not this. This is an edible strawberry. The little snake strawberry will give you some distress. It's super seedy, but the birds like it. But this fruit is super sweet. It's does really well in my garden. Full sun is best for fruiting again. And this one definitely does need water between flowering and fruiting, or you're going to have very, very small fruit. So the water's got to be in the sweet spot, though, because if it's too much water, you're going to lose the taste. And you're going to have rotting berries. If it's too little, they're going to be too small and hard. But you can actually manage these just like you would, not on plastic, like commercial berry growers do, but like a mat, what they call the strawberry mat growing, and you're just going to come through maybe every other year or every 2 years, come through and pull out some of the plants so that you can rejuvenate it, because the younger plants are more vigorous and are going to produce more berries. They spread by runner, and they will, if they're happy where they are, they'll spread very quickly. They're kind of a pain to pick because they're small and it takes a lot of them to make a quart of berries, but it is so rewarding because they are so delicious. You can use them any way that you would use the hybrid berries that we grow so well in North Carolina. One thing that people don't think about very often, and it's not the fruit, but I put it in here, is the leaves can be used for tea. So that's, they have a nice flavor. Southern crabapple, yes, sir.
I heard that there was a fungus that's messing up the commercial strawberries. Does it impact the wild strawberry?
I haven't seen it be a problem with the wild strawberry population, and that's probably because they're growing in nature. If you find them, so a lot of what's happening with those commercial berries is they're produced through tissue culture, and they're transferring some of the viral problems through that tissue culture. And so that's not how these are propagated. So I have not seen that be a problem yet. Let's hope it's not.
Where do you get wild strawberries by?
Where do you get wild strawberries to buy?
As in the fruit itself or the plant? At the end of the presentation, I've got a list of a bunch of nurseries. And also, the Botanical Garden on their website has a wonderful list for native plants, but I've put in some that were specific for fruiting.
So I think we'll hold the rest of the
Okay,
questions until
okay.
the end. We've got about 15 minutes left, and
So I
then we'll
need
have
to-
5 minutes for questions.
Okay, so I'll speed it up here. So this is our southern crabapple. This one's very beautiful, in bloom now. It is being threatened because of habitat loss, which is sad. But again, this is one of those that the more sun, the more fruit. Often where they are growing is kind of as under a canopy, and so you don't see a lot of fruit, but you might notice some good fall color if you've got some in your landscape, and that would be a way to identify them. Crab apples are also very tart. When they are cooked, the apple flavor comes out pretty strong, and so it's good to use in ciders. It's a popular fruit for ciders. Red mulberry, this is one that I added because I thought we need to honor the mulberry. It is a messy tree, very easy to grow. It spreads, deciduous, about 30 feet in height. If you want to try to maintain it, because it is going to really take over, it grows fast. Prune it in late fall or winter, again, to avoid bleeding. It probably would be bleeding if you pruned it now because our temperatures are so warm. Birds love this and they plant it widely. But it is one of those that is an old-time native fruit that folks used to plant in their homesteads, own their homesteads, and use that for, they would eat them as fresh fruit, they cooked with them, and some people even made wine, but it doesn't store well. It has a very short shelf life. Here's another one I added. This is passion flower. I have a friend who has a farm called Plum Granny, and she named it after this plant. Not many people call it that, but that's what she called it, so I'm honoring Cheryl with it there. But Passiflora incarnata, it got its name because back in the 1500s, some Catholic priest used the flower as a teaching tool about the crucifixion. Those are the fruit over there on the right, and that's the innards that are sweet. It is a herbaceous perennial vine. It does spread with an extensive root system. It's kind of hard to get rid of once you get it started. It's best to maybe grow it on a trellis and kind of contain it, because unless you don't mind that it covers, but the flowers are just absolutely gorgeous, so exotic, and they only last one day. And there's another little picture there, and basically you can make jelly out of it. Another one I added, sumac. And so I love this plant. There are 3 different ones here. The Rus aromatica is the first one up there on the left, and it is a smaller one. And then you've got 2 bigger ones, the smooth sumac, and then the staghorn sumac. You'll see this often growing on the roadsides. Beautiful fall color, those red plumes of berries, little tiny berries there, are used for seasoning. They're also used to make some drinks. And here's some pictures, and that's a good picture of the spike head there. So lot of interest in the landscape. Our blackberries, this is a whole group of blackberries. We've got the common blackberry, black raspberry, northern dewberry, and southern dewberry. I think we're all pretty much familiar with these. They will fruit on the second year cane. So the first year is just a vegetative stage. You're going to have 3 leaflets on that, and then you get your fruit on the second year. They are very thorny. Have y'all heard of blackberry winter? Blackberry winter is when they're blooming and we get that cold snap. So in May, when it gets cold, that's blackberry winter. Really good fruit, delicious. But you have to work to harvest because they are so spiny. The dewberries tend to be pretty small, but very sweet, very tasty. And lots of things can be made out of these. And then we have elderberry. This is something that a lot of people have gotten very interested in because of the using it. I think back during COVID, it was used a lot for coughs and sore throats and things like that. So a lot of people are interested in this. It's a really pretty shrub, and it blooms all summer from late spring into late August, really. And it is considered one of the most important plants for wildlife, I think, because it is so abundant. And the birds eat the berries. There are a lot of pollinators that like the flowers. The new growth, this is in the elder family, the new growth can be poisonous to livestock. So if you have livestock, you don't want this growing along the edges of the field. There are some named cultivars that are good for berry production. We actually have small farmers these days planting elderberry orchards so that, because there's a market for those berries and also for the flowers. And only eat the blue or purple ones. The red ones will, they will make you sick, so don't eat red ones. Lots of good uses for these, and here's some pictures. So the elder flowers, there are liqueurs that are made from that, very popular in Europe, and has been for a long time. We're just kind of catching on. Blueberries. So bunch of different species there. And that's the nice picture of the flower. And then down in the right, I don't know if y'all can tell, but it has really nice fall color, red fall color. These are very well suited to our native soils. So we have acid soils in North Carolina, and blueberries grow really well in them. They prefer a soil pH less than 5. So that tells you something right there. All of these different ones, they grow from 2 feet to 12 feet. These can be pruned. All of our lovely commercial ones that we grow now came from basically the first one that I told you about. We used to call it Vaccinium ascii, but now it's called Corymbosum. And berries all summer. You can plant a variety that's going to start bearing in June, and you can be harvesting really up until the end of August. Okay, and then my last plant I want to tell you about is Vitis rotundifolia, or muscadine. And people often call this scuppernong, the one that's gold. And actually, scuppernong is a cultivar or variety. It's an old variety of muscadine. It's also called the southern fox grape, and it is our state fruit. So we can be very proud of that. These will grow. It's an herbaceous perennial vine. It's going to grow 10 to 15 feet. It's going to stretch to the sun if it's growing wild in your woods. You know, there's a story of the mother vine. See if I need to tell you anything. They do need support if you want to harvest the fruit, because they will climb the tree and keep going. So it is thick skin. It does have seeds inside of it, although there are some seedless cultivars now. This is a wine that's made from, this is in Duplin County, and it's called the Mother Vine, and they took cuttings from a 400-year-old muscadine or scuppernong vine that is in Manio, and was documented by the Sir Walter Raleigh's group, the colonists. They documented it. And so they've taken cuttings from that, and they're growing them at the Duplin farm, and they're producing this wine now. So, and it's cute. It says, "Mother knows best." So. Okay, so here are some resources. These are just going to be resources that give you much more in-depth information than I have shared with you today. And then I think you're all very interested in sources for plants. So I'll go to that next, let everybody get a picture of that. So here are some nurseries. Well, of course, the Botanical Garden has the sale here. You can also, these are, I put all of our good North Carolina nurseries first. Useful Plants Nursery in Black Mountain. If you ever go to the Organic Growers School, they are always there. Carolina Native Nursery, they have a wholesale and a retail. They don't do any mail order. And then Piedmont Plants Nursery is a new small nursery in the Winston-Salem area, as well as Frank's Perennial Border is in Winston-Salem. And both of those have websites. You can go and look at their plant list and see what they have, which is useful. And they may be willing to do some shipping. And then I put some more. There's a Hidden Springs Nursery, which is a real good source for some of your tree fruit. Forest Keeling Nursery is they have revolutionized the native plant industry, and One Green World out in Portland, Oregon, they will also ship. An Edible Landscaping Nursery in Afton, Virginia. They have some natives as well. Oh, I'm sorry, let me go back. Let you get that, you got it. And then here's some more. These were the lists that I was telling you about. The Botanical Garden here has a long list. You can go to their website and look at that, download it, and also the NC Native Plant Society also has a list of nurseries. So thank you very much. I am happy to take questions if you have any questions.
Great, thank you, Mary Jack. That was great. If you could forward to the next slide,
Yes.
this is, we have some UNC students in the room and online who are taking this for CLE credit. You can use this QR code
Awesome.
to get credit for that. And I'll start with one question in the Zoom Q&A. So this program, and I neglected to mention in the beginning, is a partnership with New Hope Bird Alliance and is part of our Bird Friendly Landscapes program. And Mary Jack probably mentioned this in the beginning, that a lot of these plants, they are food for birds as well. And sometimes we like to protect them a little bit more so we get a little bit more fruit as the humans. And so what are some ways to prevent the birds from eating them when we want to do that don't harm the birds?
Well, that don't harm the birds. My first answer was going to be bird netting, but if you use bird netting, you need to be very careful to make sure it's very well tethered and closed. Otherwise, birds can find their way up in the netting, and unfortunately, that's not good for them. They may get to eat a lot, but then when it's time for them to leave, they have a difficult time. So be careful with that if you're using it. I've seen several different things used. There's, when the fruit is getting ripe, you can actually, well, there's some things that you can buy. You can buy predator birds, bird sounds, and actually play that, so it'll sound like hawks and, other birds that would be birds of prey that would keep more of the songbirds away. And you could play that during, I had a blackberry farmer who did that just during the ripening time. I've heard people put radios out, and they say this works for deer sometimes too. They'll put a radio out and turn it on a talk channel, which that would really get annoying. I don't think the birds would want to stay around, but maybe you could find a bunch of sports or something and let them listen to that.
Any questions in the room? I have another from Zoom. Do blueberries need to experience cold winter? This person is used to the northern varieties. Maybe not these, but listed ones.
So the blueberries, let me go back to that. Let's see. There are varieties that are better for cooler areas. Ooh, I passed it, didn't I? Here we are. So I put some varieties. Oh, I didn't put the varieties. So there are varieties that are better for Piedmont, and then there's some that are better for cooler areas. Some that are better for cooler areas, I know in particular, Yadkin is a variety that's good. So you would want to select varieties that are going to do well for the cooler areas, and there are some that will grow very well there. Yadkin is one. I think Duke is another variety. Some of the ones for the Piedmont would be Premier and Climax, Tiff Blue, those are all been cultivated from our native, and tend to not have as many pest problems. There was something else I wanted to tell you about blueberries, but maybe there's another question.
Yes, one more question here. Which native fruits are most amenable to growing in a garden bed or a grow bag?
Oh, good question. Let's see. Well, definitely your wild strawberries are going to be super easy in a raised bed or in a garden. You could do blueberries in gardens. Those are, and blackberries even, although blueberries are less, going to travel less. Your blackberries are going to travel. Pawpaw is a good one. I have to remind myself of what I had on here. Going backwards. Serviceberry is a beautiful tree and would do very well in a garden. I mean, in a orchard type setting. Pawpaw would work well in an orchard type setting. That give them enough?
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, and we have a lot of examples of these around the botanical garden too. Questions in the room? I think that's it. Well, thank you all for
Great.
being here. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much,
so
Mary
much.
Jack.
My pleasure. Thank you all.
Look forward to seeing you all next time.